a second for me to switch to my other screen and see if it works for you?
I already started rolling. We'll figure it out as we go. But let me see it on the...
Perfect.
Yeah, show me on... Whoops.
So I have this. I have a full screen, and then I have just a localized...
Gotcha. Okay, I'll put you in the comm screen for that I have. And I'll just put... You'll see. I'll... Like when I'm doing clips.
Yep, I got you.
Know what I mean?
Okay,
yeah. Get Instagram up and running. All right. Are we up and running everywhere or just somewhere? Looks like it. Okay.
Turn that fan back on.
That's totally fine.
I'll fix that next week.
You put it on put your computer on an ice pack.
No, I just need like a sound deadener behind the microphone.
Right. Hi, chat room. What's happening? Share the show. Let everybody know. And we're up on Instagram now. I've almost got my my work layout ready to go. Like, eventually it will be turnkey, just not yet. Thanks for LibNNC subscribing. Thank you so much. Why am I only seeing Twitch in there? Why am I not seeing... Oh, I know why. We should be up on Instagram. Hello, Instagram people. We're even up on Shitter for the last day. Last day on Shitter, people. Just letting you know. All right, we're going to get started in just a minute. Let me check one more thing.
Operation at the HAL plant in Urbana, Illinois on the 12th of January, 1992.
Soon we will leave this lame planet and fly through outer space with cool aliens who like us. It is going to be awesome!
Yes. One more thing. Let me jump straight in and welcome everybody to HAL Sparks Mornings, Mega Worldwide, the area where we can go deeper into these conversations. The afternoon show, of course, is a flutter with the daily news as I chop it to pieces and make it digestible. and give you a spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, on Fridays, it's time for Friday Eye with our dear friend Rob Glenn from Root Design in Chicago, my nerd brother from another mother. And on a perfect day, by the way, because I have a Nerd Halen show tonight and tomorrow night for Formula One, which is nerd NASCAR, I would like to say. There are probably more physicists working in F1 than in any other competitive sport in the world. I can say that, I think, without any reservation whatsoever. Right?
I'm a huge Formula One fan, by the way. And
Are you?
I've been for years. Yeah, since I'm a big Lewis Hamilton fan, and I've been following him since he was a rookie. So,
wow. I know
love Nerd Halen.
Nothing of these people. Yeah, so that makes sense.
There.
Yeah, it's kind of it is sort of nerd perfection in that regard. And it's the closest thing to like rocket races as far as the technology that goes into it. And it's fascinating how like the fervent underbelly of F1, it's like watching my girlfriend and her son watch football yesterday. And I've always been a fan of pugilism as a sport. I like mixed martial arts fighting, and I like strict martial arts fighting, kung fu against kung fu, karate against karate, taekwondo competitions, that kind of thing, and boxing, and not a lot of team sports stuff. Occasionally, but mainly maybe that's a Chicago thing because I came into we didn't have a team in Kentucky, and so I come up to Chicago and we have the Cubs, and they don't have to win for you to have a good time, so I don't really have to care. You just go to the park and watch a game, and it's lovely. It's lovely. If they win, it's like, that's great. And if they lose, you're like, oh, whatever. It was a good hot dog. We're fine. And so I never really been into that world of it. And it's always interesting when people are really into one of them, right? Really like excited about a particular sport that I'm like, oh, there's people that like that stuff. I mean, obviously F1 has a huge audience worldwide, and it's somewhere between like NASA and golf as far as the fan base, as far as like the refined fan base of it, right? Only like the money required for NASA and the maturity of being able to watch golf, if I'm being charitable, I think, and it's a lot faster than that. But the idea is that you're not watching NASCAR for necessarily the spin outs. You're actually wanting them to win and do well. That's the difference, I think. But we'll find out tonight.
Yeah. Well, there's a full practice schedule. They started practicing last night, and then there'll be a practice tonight, and then the race will be tomorrow. Practice and qualifying is tonight.
Yeah, right.
And then tomorrow will be the race. And it was known, like it was so Vegas was first. They first raced in Vegas last year. Right. And everybody kind of thought it was going to be a crappy course because of the layout of it. Yeah. And it ended up being a very, very good race to watch. It was fun to watch. So hopefully this year it'll be the same thing.
Well, we shall see what we shall see, certainly. I have to say, like, everybody's attitude around here is, oh God, like all the locals
the traffic
are like,
is terrible.
The roads are closed and the like it's hilarious. Watching everybody's reaction to it because it's brand new to the they didn't have a chance to like it before they decided to hate it, right?
Right. Well, they race really late at night, I think, right? Like they do the first practice at 11, and I want to say the second or the race is at like 1 a.m. or something. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Right? I mean, I might be wrong on the times, but it's in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it's really late. So we should. Like, I guess it's for the European audience. It's almost like, so people in Europe and Asia can watch it early in the morning or late, in the middle of the afternoon themselves. Yeah.
Well, and Vegas looks great at night, and they drive by the Sphere, and so it's a whole thing. And the thing is in the middle of the night, I mean, they're not quiet. So it's very loud.
It's like I tell you what it is. It's like your city has been invaded by a giant fleet of UFOs that turn out to be electric shavers.
Or 2 cycle engines. Like everybody has a leaf blower on their back. Walking
That's right. Well, from a distance, it sounds very, it shaves off the edges of the noise. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it smooths it out quite a bit. If you're on top of it, I'm sure, yikes. Now, obviously, welcome to Friday Eye. The touchiest subject, ironically enough that I deal with on the show in the regular since we've started. The most divisive topic where I've seen it's the only area where I've seen audience members literally say, "Don't encourage them. Don't talk about this." And I have to say, that's not going to help. Okay, kids, there's not a single part of this where it's going to help it's going to, I guess, put a stop to the advance of AI just because we ignore it more than any other thing. And I brought up something. Let's see if I can bring this up. Okay. So one of the things we hear about all the time is how are we going to make this stuff and how are we going to power this stuff? China has all of our rare earth minerals and power, energy, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I went into looking into this concept of rare earth minerals. This was my little homework. We'll start off with this because this is the where, and then we're going to build towards. I even made a little graphic if it works, if I could find it, for our AIAF section of the show, which is just where things are getting AIAF. And you can also follow me on Blue Sky at AIAF.bluesky.social because I started that.
There you go.
It's true. Yeah, right. So one of the things about the idea is that China produces somewhere in the order of like 70% of, quote, the rare earth minerals. Now, I want to say real quick, and you probably know this as well, that rare earth minerals are not rare at all. They're not. The process by which you get them is a pain in the ass, and they come in, it's like large chunks of dirt, have very little of it, so it's rare amongst the pile of dirt. Right? It would be rare to compared to the dirt in your yard, finding little bits of europium or whatever in there would be rare amongst that, but it wouldn't be non-existent. It would just be spread out, finely enough, and it's so small that sifting it out is the complicated part. It's rare amongst all dirt, but it's not rare on the earth. And I think it's that whole thing of Earth as a planet versus Earth as the dirt below our feet, which we also use. It's that, it's good old English in our mixed use words, right?
If anybody watches Discovery, there's a bunch of gold shows on Discovery.
Yes.
It's not unlike that, where it's basically they need to take a whole bunch of dirt and they need to process the dirt and then kind of filter it down to the things that they want to keep.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I was looking around, I was like, okay, where in the United States do we, if we do it all, do we have, quote, rare earth minerals? Let me open this image.
A lot of them.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But on top of that, we have, if I may, I'm going to pop over this. This is a site that if you live in the LA or Vegas area might look familiar to you. This is like Mountain Peak or whatever. It's an excavation mine that you can see it off the 15 driving to and from Vegas. It's about maybe 40 minutes from downtown Vegas. It's not even that far, maybe an hour depending on traffic. And then and only a couple hours from like Los Angeles, maybe 2.5, 3. And it's a mine that started, I want to say, in the 20s or 30s and was all but derelict up until a few years ago, was in this process of being, of going under, essentially, because we were sourcing all of our, quote, rare earth minerals. This was an area where one of the biggest things they got out of this thing was the color red, this element used to make the color red in television sets. And apparently, back in the 50s and 60s, when color TVs started showing up, they were giving away buckets of this red stuff, like the red mineral. They were selling it for cash to like TV manufacturers. They would drive up with a truck and they would have it in a bucket, and you'd literally buy it by the bucket to make television sets in the late 50s, early 60s, right? It was like such a Wild West kind of a thing. For real. This is a true story. And then somewhere, around, there's this overlap moment where they went, we don't need to get this. We can get this just-in-time manufacturing on electronics is fine. China's our buddy. If we have a problem, if they run out, we can get it from India or something like that. And then there was still a little hint in the back of people's minds, like 9/11 could fuck us up. Something might be wonky here. So we should probably keep it online, but we really don't need it. We'll just let it. Okay. So anyways, it went on. It needed a lot more support, and it started going into bankruptcy. And this dude basically saw its potential and the necessity of it, and he and his little investment group rolled in there and salvaged it. They literally walked up on the courthouse bankruptcy steps when this thing was going under and handed the people running it, who they were buying it from, in at auction. Basically, they're like trying to take it from them, but they knew if it was shut down entirely, getting it totally restarted would be nearly impossible. So they needed to keep it at least humming along on a basic level. Oh, sorry, it says Greg Proops. You're right. Underneath, that's wrong. I forgot to fix your logo there. Boink. There you go.
I didn't even notice that. Oh, just because you switched over to this.
Yeah, exactly. I switched to this screen. Sorry. There we go. Yeah. So anyways, they walked up onto the steps where this guy was like going in to like fold the company, and they handed him briefcases with like somewhere between $3 and $5 million, I think was the number, in briefcases. Okay. Like, here, give this to the probate judge in cash and tell them to sit on it until we get you a cashier's check for $10 million or whatever and can hold us open. They literally had to like take the money out of the bank and run there to keep it from shutting down the whole thing entirely. So they kept it afloat enough to buy it out from under the guy. Literally, he was declaring bankruptcy, and so they bought it at auction, essentially. And now we now know this is the second largest producer of rare earth minerals on the planet, right behind China. And China has like 5 sites. This is just one by itself. And so the system they set up uses completely recycled water, is the most environmentally efficient rare earth mineral mine on Earth. They built it with that concept in mind. And then thanks to our current president, Joe Biden, they got seed money to take this little area right here and run breakouts of it up in the hill over here and up in the hill over here. And so it will very soon be the #1 rare earth mineral producing site in the world. Currently, it produces somewhere between 19 and 25% of the world's rare earth minerals. They're looking for it to be 75%, where we in the United States, even with the new chip fabs and all that stuff that we're doing, will need less than half of it. And so the worry about, like oil and gas are somehow like the devil so everybody's like okay with what happens, mining the kind of stuff that we'll need to make like batteries and the like. They're like, it destroys the environment, not compared to oil being shipped in boats. The other thing too is the second one, and I'll go over to this, is the Salton Sea. Now the Salton Sea is in California as well. You can if you could pause for a second. So the environmental impact aspect of that mine,
that effectively is the difference between when a mine is happening in the US versus in China. In China, they don't care. They just let everything go and do whatever. And that's part of why it's cheaper. And much of the reason why everybody started buying from China is because it was cheaper. And that was because of half environment, probably. I don't know what the percentages are, but environmental plus very cheap labor. So if we now have a different environment where the cost aspect of it has different implications, then it makes it affordable to actually spend the money to make it less impactful on the environment. And you're starting to speak about that. And the way you do that is simply by adding, dealing with it with technology.
Yep. And you innovate through it, which is going to be one of my bigger points in this too. Yeah.
That's going to take more time. It's going to cost more. And up until maybe, I don't know, maybe when Trump started putting in the first set of tariffs, and actually we've talked about COVID as being kind of a break point for supply chains, but they were starting to shift before that. I would say when Obama started talking, when Clinton, I guess Obama was talking about the TPP, that was the start of the shift of the realization that we needed to diversify our supply chains. So that was when companies started figuring out, hey, we better start investing in other places because something's going to happen with China. And then COVID, Trump's tariffs, his original tariffs, and then COVID are effectively what accelerated that. But that was already going to happen. It just might have taken maybe 5 to 10 more years.
Yeah. Well, I think the key to this is the inevitability. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about today, that in a lot of this, folks, there is no getting out of this. There is no situation. By the way, and we need this, like the technology. It's interesting to me that people are so panicked about the Skynet possibilities of AI and all this other stuff. But in the reality, every future we've ever looked to where we have a highly advanced technological future where very few people have to do hard work and a lot of people can do brain work and cultural work as a way of, making a living or expanding whatever their baseline UBI existence is, from Star Trek to Battlestar Galactica to whatever, there's none of that happens if humans have to put each electronic piece together and do that work. There just won't be enough humans to make that advancement in thousands and thousands of years, right? So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in a way that doesn't destroy humans along the way. This is the way you don't cook humans in the process. And what we've been doing with most of our technology to this point is cooking humans. We've been having them lose their thumbs in factories. We've been having them get black lung. We've been cooking humans for the fuel of the future. This is the point where we no longer have to cook humans to do it. That we're getting to that point. The transition will be uncomfortable in some areas and super smooth in other areas. And you and I were talking about something this week that I really want to get to, but I want to show people the Salton Sea thing real quick. This is the Salton Sea in California. It's the seawater in this. It's actually a lake, but the water in this is so saline that it's toxic. Essentially, you can't swim in it because it'll make you sick because it's got so much salt in it. And around it, though, is the world's largest, and under it is the world's largest lithium deposit known to man. Maybe there's another one, underneath the Marianas Trench or something like that. But as far as reachable access to lithium, this is it. Now, I have to tell you, I don't think lithium is the battery fuel of the future. And by the way, this is not necessarily a man-made problem per se. This is just this is man trying to fix another problem and then nature reacting. But I personally don't think lithium-ion batteries are the future. I think there's going to be a lot of transition in that very quickly. So
they're already transitioning into, I think it's
solid
liquid
state
phosphorus.
Yeah, and some solid state batteries.
There are LFP batteries now starting to come out, and they're cheaper and I don't remember the exact
flames.
specifications that are different, but there's a different underlying cathode or something like that. At any rate, that's already happened, but you're right, solid state, possibly some of the hydrogen stuff, like a combo of them, you know, it could be a lot of things.
The nuclear diamond batteries, they're still working on those.
That's such a cool, I love that idea just in general as a technology is so interesting because I just love the idea that a machine can make something in the same way that it actually naturally was being made. Like it's not actually a synthetic diamond. It's a real diamond. It's just made by a machine. That's really cool to me. And I love the concept of how that just sort of plays off of like the scarcity of diamonds and their value and all that other stuff. Like, and then all of a sudden your ring, your ring is not actually as valuable because of the scarcity anymore. And that's a really cool concept to me. Yeah.
And the fact that you can make these things and you can now use them for industrial purposes in mass volume, and it's not even that difficult, really. And so, for those of you who don't know, the nuclear diamond concept, they're prototyping basically AA size batteries that would last 28,000 years and they don't have to be recharged. Battery, by the way, is not really what it is. It's technically a power emitter, because what they do is they take carbon-14, which is a residual element from coal mining. There's a ton of it left over, and some industrial manufacturing produces carbon-14 as well from the materials that they kind of separate out. And that carbon-14, we use it to date fossils because you can tell by its half-life how long it's been somewhere, and there's plenty of it everywhere because we're all made of carbon. And so carbon-14 emits radiation. It always does. But not enough to hurt you. It's all around, and it's sort of permeate. But if you condense it and cram it all together, it bundles against itself and produces just enough energy that's about, in these small packets of a AA battery. And then what you do is you encase it in artificial diamond, and the reaction of it bouncing off the artificial diamond on the inside sends the energy out the only way you let it go out, okay? So you create a battery that effectively you can chain them together, or you can just have them come out one end, essentially, like the tube in Neo's head. And you take these, they wouldn't be batteries, they'd be emitters, but they'll call them batteries for shorthand. And you take something like this, and an array of them could power a device forever. Think of anything you have that has a AA battery in it, or a couple of them. You put that in that device, and it runs off that till it's no longer useful. Like till someone has upgraded the device out of existence, or it runs until it runs out of power. And for NASA's use and stuff, that's where that all started. Was, hey, how do we send something into deep space, and what happens if it goes into a galaxy that doesn't have a star or doesn't get close enough to it where it can pull enough solar radiation to keep going? And we don't want to put a piece of plutonium in it so that we accidentally trigger Back to the Future in another on another planet. So is there something? So it's a dirty diamond battery. Is a great way of looking at it, Paul. Yeah,
that's kind of
right.
I've also read concepts of taking them and literally like a chip is on a board, or any component that goes on a PC board inside of a piece of electronics. And the battery is just another little chip that sits next to the chip. Or possibly maybe even it's integrated into the chip, so that they're literally, all these things on the board are self-powered. So if they're all self-powered, then you don't need to add more power.
You don't need a power source. Right. Yeah.
And they're their own power source, which is fascinating.
And the smaller they get, the less power they draw to themselves. A lot of it is the computation secondarily that causes the heat loss and all that other stuff. But if you get down to like borderline quantum level, we're talking about chips that don't require that much power to fire them off and make them do stuff.
Right.
As a matter of fact, they need very low regulated power to do it. That's one of the reasons why, like, battery power in laptops is getting better. That's because you can blow up the chips with too much power. So they intentionally have to keep the power flow low. So batteries last longer, not because the batteries got necessarily that much better, but because the draw of the board is lower. Now, graphics and
part of efficiency
monitors
is making the work happen with less energy. And
right.
That's, most of the computers or chips get more efficient over time. But a lot of in terms of power in general, if you're producing power, let's say at a power plant, and then sending it over wires, eventually getting to your house, and then sending it through a plug into your computer, the energy it takes to produce it, and then there's a very high amount of loss of that power from the source to the final destination. So if you put the power effectively at the source, you eliminate automatically a massive amount of power required because you don't have the loss anymore.
Right.
And so just instantly that technology can create efficiencies like that are sort of almost like half or more, you know?
Right.
It's kind of amazing.
It's
these
almost
are
like
sort of concepts for how technology does solve these problems. Like it's not just making energy with less fossil fuels or with less carbon emissions. It's also making things less or more efficient. So if you don't need to produce more power and you're still doing more work, you're effectively getting the same thing.
Right. Well, we look at like the fossil fuel use in the United States. We're about to, largely because of stuff that was set in motion in the Obama presidency and accelerated under Biden, we're about to reach escape velocity with the amount of fossil fuel we use versus the draw that we make on it from the, in terms of cars and factories and all that kind of stuff. There's this point where we need to buy zero. That's the, where Trump was like, we're going to be energy independent and energy dominant. And dominant just means we can sell the excess. It's such a stupid way to look at it. But how do we get there? Do we get there simply by drill baby drilling? No, because at this point, they're almost at max capacity of what they can pull out of the ground. We get there through efficiency, and the efficiency is a natural aspect of technology. This is one of the things I do love about technology, is that it is inherently deflationary. It is cheaper. Like the whole goal of it is to get cheaper and more efficient all the time, even just to make it work. Right? Every time a group of scientists is looking at a chip system or whatever that they're working on, they need to use less, I guess, less energy draw and all these other things so they can make it do the things they want it to do. That is kind of almost always going to be true until they hit quantum computers, and then it just kind of pegs the needle, and then technically speaking, you could chip people's brains just by spraying something in their face, which is a totally different animal. Like that's in the world of black. That's what I'm now going to freak everybody out again.
Like everybody's freaked out about putting, like, somehow secretly getting chips in our brains, while Elon Musk is out there saying he wants to, like, have you volunteer for him to put a chip, literally put a chip in your brain. Like, it's just stupid.
It's moronic. Stupid. The same people that like, again, I don't, in any other circumstance, the Alex Joneses of the world would be flipping out, right? If Tim Apple, if Tim Cook was, better yet, Bill Gates. Imagine if Bill Gates was meeting with Obama, and just hanging out together on the regular, and then Biden invited him into the White House, and they started talking about, something equivalent to Neuralink for every American. So we can know what your vote is. You just have to think who you want to vote for, and it registers your vote, like that kind of stuff. Like their heads would explode. And that's exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's doing it by saying you can play a video game without a controller.
Right. Which is like, why would I want to do that? Here's one of the best things about playing a video game with a controller. You can put the controller down.
Well, there's that.
You can walk away from the controller. You can stop playing the video game and get on with the rest of your life. It's fun sometimes. Believe me, I use it to blow off steam. I love playing video games. It's fun. But at a certain point, I'm very happy that I can put that thing in a drawer and I'm not even seeing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are technologies that are also going to advance on their own. Like people have constantly been looking for a way, like if you didn't have to type on your keyboard anymore, all you did is thought and it typed what you wanted to type. That would be way more efficient way to communicate, that would be a way more efficient user interface to your computer.
Right.
So that stuff's going to happen. I'm sort of just speaking to the idea of like chips in your brain as like a conspiracy theory versus the thing you volunteer for because you really want to play a video game, you know?
Yes, exactly. So, if I may, we'll look at, hold on, I made something. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, here we go. I feel like I should take this thing and just throw it up on screen. I'll just put it in here like this. Will it play though? We don't know. Maybe not.
Is this your intro to our second half hour?
Sure. Well, the easiest way to do it is just to go to this. AI. AF.
Fancy.
There you go. Fancy, yeah. So in this particular thing, I know everybody, and let's see, I know some people have some questions in the chat room too, but there are,
Well, we talked about doing like a very simple tutorial, not simple, maybe just like a very basic tutorial on getting ChatGPT to work.
Yes.
And so we talked about there's a very wide range of technical capability in the chat or that are listeners.
Yes.
So I guess I would say our first idea, and this is us just kind of testing the waters, was literally to start with how do you get there and what do you type in as your first prompt, I'll call it. And this is us that up on my screen. So ChatGPT, I would think start with how do you get there? For most people, that's probably the easiest access point. And the reason I say that is because it's a website. It also has apps, but if you don't want to download an app or you don't want to figure out how to use Microsoft's version through a certain browser, no matter what browser you have, no matter what device you have, you can just go to chatgpt.com.
Right.
So anybody can do that. It's totally free. And it's a great kind of first toe in the water into using AI. When you get there, they're going to ask you like any other site to sign up. You're not paying, you're not putting a credit card in. All you're doing is a standard login and password. And they'll, like any other site, they try to make it really easy. So like any other site, you could use your Google or your Apple login or whatever the actual like automated thing is. But once you get there, I don't know if you're able to like pop my screen up, but
I will do just that. So what I'm going to do is the easiest thing.
So everybody knows we've never done this before.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna try to add this. So
is this yours?
Yeah, that's mine, but I'm gonna put you in there as well. I'll do your full when you go to your full screen, so I can pop this in here, and then what I can do,
I see. Okay.
Put it here, and then I'll move it back in. There you go, and then put it above that. Yeah, ta-da! Well, hold on, I got to move you over a little bit.
In there.
There you go. I'll shrink it down. It's okay. We'll work it out. There we go.
Okay.
Pretty close. Excellent.
So this is what. So there's a paid version of ChatGPT and there's an unpaid version of ChatGPT. What you're looking at, just because I pay for it, because I use it a lot, is the paid version. But it looks almost the same when you use the free version, except it doesn't have these these couple of icons down here. And those icons are like, you can upload things to it. So don't worry about that right now. Mm-hmm. The next thing to realize or understand is that there are these things called models. the free version uses the most current model, which is 4.0, ChatGPT 4.0. That's what's here at the top. But there's like a time limit or a amount of data limit. I'm not sure exactly what the limit is, but there's a limit to it. Call it a time limit for now. And as you use it, if you go over the limit, all it does is it degrades to the next one down. I think it's either 4 or 3. I think it might be 3 or 3.5. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But the models, think of the models like your iPhone has a version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So 4.0 is the most current. 3 is the last one. I think a
better analogy for most people would be 5G versus 4 LTE versus SOS, right? When your phone just kind of like, as far as signal, you don't have that ability to get the highest signal. It will drop down to the second one, which is usually LTE, and then it'll be some other, God help us, UA, whatever, and then the bottom one is SOS when you're relying on a satellite to let people know you're in the Andes. Real quick, can you open that menu again real quick on the models to show everybody? So it's a little hard to read, but right here, what this says is temporary chat. And the fascinating thing about that one is that in a temporary chat...
We'll get to the memory. We'll get to the memory. I haven't gotten there yet. So we'll come back to that temporary chat. Excellent. But remember that for sure.
Take it away, Rob Glenn. All right.
Okay. So the difference between 4 and 3, I would say call it smarter. We tend to like to not use human descriptors for it, but since everybody does, let's use them for a minute.
Sure.
4 is smarter than 3 or 3.5. And the other big thing is what Hal just said, which is memory. So as you do chats, 4 will remember your previous stuff, and 3 or whatever the previous one is under the free version will not. Okay, so before we get into that, so what do you do? So we talked last week about the tyranny of options, the tyranny of choice. When you get here, it's kind of like Google. It's like, well, what do I do? There's just a thing to type in, right? So I don't know if Hal's going to put this in, but we had the idea of just trying to come up with like a prompt that everybody could use.
Right.
So, the one I just pasted in, I am a choose your adventure. Please give me a list. I put 10, but I'll just do 5 for. Please give me a list of 5 things that I can use ChatGPT I was changing this along the way, that ChatGPT can help me do better. Yeah. So let's pick a profession or a descriptor of a person that's not too technical. Anybody have any ideas?
Yeah. Anybody in the chat, we'll just throw one in there.
If I put mine in there, my profession, it would be too technical for what we're doing here. So I thought maybe like accountant, it might be too hard to.
And also, can you blow up the text on your thing using?
I'll try.
Yeah, and there you go. Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, so it's a little bigger so people could see.
It's at the bottom. Is that better?
Yeah, it's fine. And then somebody, let's see, a gardener.
A writer. A gardener.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Good.
Gardener. Perfect. Because writer, I think writer, somebody said writer, but that's kind of too, I think that's too obvious, like too on the nose. Okay, so
because
I'm a gardener.
Does a lot of that.
Please give me a list of 5 things. Like I said, I combine things. 5 things ChatGPT can help me do better. You hit enter, and it's going to basically take a little time to. Now it's got memory for me. Yours won't have this, but here are 5 ways ChatGPT can help you as a gardener. So garden planning, plant care guidance, seasonal advice, problem solving, creative ideas. There you go. So, as a gardener, let's pick one. I came up with 2 to get you started. The second one is, hold on one second. So now that you've done this, please tell me more about how I can blank using ChatGPT and pick one of these. How I can garden plan, how I can have. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. I was just laughing because it sounds like a question from a 70s game show. How can AI
well, I
help me
mean,
to
it's a start.
My ex-wife.
So how can I diagnose plant issues like pests using ChatGPT? We'll paste that into this. Okay. So this is how we've mentioned this before. So if you ask it to tell you how to use it, it will tell you how to use it.
Yeah.
So describe the symptom. Appearance, affected areas, timing, pattern. So it's literally sort of like structuring a prompt for you, and you just have to kind of fill in the blanks. So I'm going to first describe the symptom. I'm then going to example. It gives me example. My tomato plant leaves are curling and have small yellow spots. I have noticed tiny black dots on the underside of the leaves. You can, well, this is getting a little bit more advanced, but upload or describe environmental details. The upload part is interesting because if you were on the more advanced version, you could, if you already had something typed out, you sent an email to somebody, let's say, about it, you could paste that in. You could send a picture, that's getting a little bit on the edge, but you could try it. You could try to send a picture of what the leaf looked like and ask it to tell you what that was.
Yep.
And then the next one, identify pests, so on and so forth. So we're just going to take the example that it gave us,
right? Just
because I don't know what your gardening problem is.
Boy, don't get me started.
Okay, so then I just pasted that prompt that it created for us as an example into it. And then you can start to see how you can basically just start driving deeper and deeper. It gives you possible causes. It gives you the different kinds of pests that might be causing that problem. White flies, fungal infection is not a pest. That's a different thing. That's a disease or a fungus. And then it kind of sends you through the steps. I've got this like very zoomed in. So my point is to show that you don't need, like a lot of people think of, or if you look up online, like how to use AI, a lot of it will sort of, sorry, there's an ambulance going by. A lot of the results will tell you like there's this like prompt engineering and you've got to be really specific and really what it does for a lot of people is it stops them from trying it. Yes. So instead of that,
you can't
just start out with general questions. And then as you sort of converse with it, you can start to drill down deeper and deeper. And this thing will get very precise. And that's where one next important thing is ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. So as it's sending you this information, you're communicating with it, as it's giving you information, when we use it, we always then, after we drill down to the more specific language of what we're trying to do, we almost always Google that. So we maybe copy and paste some information and we check on what that means, or see if Google will give you an answer. It will, or it will give you web pages, and then you can kind of do some very specific research.
Brondo, it's what plants crave.
What's that?
It starts giving you, Brondo. It's what plants crave from Idiocracy. They started pouring energy drinks on.
Okay, so
killed all the plants.
So this is the sort of really rough, basic kind of starting point, and then let me drive to one more level. So now we just did this. And what it has is it has a history over here. I hit it to begin with, but I think this comes up automatically. It has a history of the things that you've talked to with it about. And so in the free version, while you're in 4.0, which is the default free until you run out of time, it will literally remember everything that you've put in, everything you've done with it thus far, if you tell it that you want it to remember. And it will both reference that information, or you can query it or ask it questions related to that information.
You can continue a conversation you were previously having. Right.
Let's say you had like 20 conversations with it over time. And then you could literally in a 21st conversation say, from the conversations we've had, please tell me who you think I am.
Right.
And it will give you a really interesting
description
answer,
of who you are. Yeah.
But specifically based on what you did. So going
Right.
back to Hal's thing real quick, because that freaks everybody out. Let's say you don't want it to remember. So
Right.
if you don't want it to remember, there's temporary chat. That's one way to do it. And then while it's black, it ghosts out all your memory and it doesn't reference the memory. There's also in, I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to get into my settings, but you can go a little deeper and you can ask it to forget as well. And it'll show you your chats and you can tell it just to forget it. It's very sort of straightforward. Okay.
Yeah, you can even give it details. Like it knows I had to change the memory when Chud passed away because it thinks I have 5 cats and I now have 4. And so I had to go in and it was very sad. I had to erase Chud so that it wouldn't bring it up. It wouldn't bring up my cat that wasn't alive anymore. So you can go in and do that. You can also, you can also
tell it, please disregard all information about Chud that's in your memory. And it will do that from then on.
Or you can you can literally tell it Chud passed away and know that about all the other, reference that into that Chud is no longer with us, Chud died. And you can still, speak about Chud, but understand it's very sensitive to me and I loved my cat and my cat is no longer with me. And it will. It really will.
So, yeah, the key to understand here is while you're communicating with it, so going back to this gardening tips, let me see if I can try to articulate this. When you ask this first question, it's answering it based on the information that it was trained on and only that information. That's very, very key. If it's not been trained on something, then it will either not give you the correct answer or it will tell you it doesn't know because it doesn't know who it is. So let's say, you were like, it does know who HAL SPARKS is, but if you asked it, and many times I'll do this while I'm working, do you know who HAL SPARKS is?
Yeah.
and then it'll say, yes, I know.
Of course.
Please tell me what you know about HAL SPARKS. And it'll tell you. So as you start to work with it, you can probe it like that to understand whether it knows something or doesn't, or at least it tells you it does.
Right.
And then you can, with the knowledge that you might have or not have, or might have or not, you can sort of kind of like lie detector it if you want. And so so again, that's the information it knows. And ChatGPT, as well as many other LLMs, who like there's Copilot and Claude and so on and so forth. There's a break point, there's a stopping point of what they know because it takes a long time to train it. And once the training stops, it can't add any more information to the training.
Right.
Okay. So that's really important. Now, there's a next level, and that is if you think about, well, how does it remember? Okay. So what I did is I typed in my first prompt. It gave me an answer, and it knows what's in this prompt. It knows what I typed. It knows what it typed, right? So I could literally say something specific, like instead of having to re-change the question, I could just tell it, let's say, now do the same thing for a police officer, or now do the same thing, and it will remember that because it's in this specific chat. So the way that works and the way that memory works is kind of the same. And that is that behind the scenes, it's putting all that information into the prompt without you knowing it. That's a good way to think about it. So if you've typed in all this information, the memory kind of works, to sort of analogize it kind of works like you ask a question and it puts the question into it plus all the things you've always ever typed. Okay. So what's really cool about that is this message window can take a lot of information. So if you wanted to ask specifically, like let's say we talked about this last week. Let's say you specifically got a book, a PDF, or something like that about gardening, And instead of wanting general questions, you wanted to only ask that book or ask it to analyze the book. You could literally paste, as much as it would let you, you could paste the book in there or the PDF or something like that and only specifically ask it questions about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to pause now because that's a lot.
It's a lot.
And I haven't been watching the chat. So if there's any questions.
So one of the things that yes, and chat room is probably like they're having either somewhere between that's really cool and brain hemorrhaging right now. One of the things also is that when you keep saying type kitties, that's what they're very good. Part of a planted shrubs and flowers in front of porch. Ask ChatGPT if it's woke. It doesn't. It doesn't quite work that way, and it's been trained to be nice, so it will act as if in these things. It is polite. So, it is not woke, I would say. Where's it?
One of the things that I would do
this is a good question.
So woke is,
and the question is everywhere.
Well, it's what it was trained on. No, not everywhere. What it's trained on. So so OpenAI is the company that runs ChatGPT. I believe Copilot is a derivative of ChatGPT, right? So it's the same sort of underlying training. I believe Gemini is specific to Google. So let's call it OpenAI, Google, and then we'll talk about Grok, which is Twitter. So because they're good to compare and contrast. So Grok specifically, they say that it's trained on Twitter. So effectively, anything that's ever gone through Twitter, you've accepted what do they call them? A user
terms
ELA?
of service.
Terms of service. Thank you. So you've accepted a terms of service, and part of that terms of service is that anything that goes into Twitter is used to train. So a while ago, HAL showed a video of them kind of talking about the fact that Elon Musk was building a server farm, Kentucky or Tennessee, I can't remember where. Tennessee. And so they literally have a whole bunch of computers that they use to train their AI, and the data is Twitter. OpenAI is a little bit wonky about explaining that. That's kind of a trade secret, they would say. But more than likely, they're essentially using spider type technology over the web. Right. And the way that works is exactly the way Google works. So Google right now works by sending out bots, browsing the web automatically, and then putting into their database the information that they get from those. They call them spiders. It's not unlike that. If anybody's, that's an older technology, but it's not unlike that, where they are going out and browsing the web with some automated something, and then the information that comes back is what's part of the training. And then there's a lot of other things that go into the training, they might run it for a while in a closed environment, and they might grade the responses, for instance, or they might. There's a lot of different sort of machine learning techniques. And I won't get into the details of that, but basically it's you're refining, you sort of put it out in the world, you let it do stuff, and then when it gives you the wrong answer, you tell it it was wrong. A lot. The best example I would have actually is CAPTCHA.
There's also a thumbs up and a thumbs down on a lot of the answers, and you can, as you're going along, it can go, how was this response? Or even if you ask for an image from what you're asking for, you can actually grade it, and that will help train it. So it's training on what people are using it for all the time.
It's effectively a feedback loop.
Yeah.
Okay. So just like anybody would learn, right? It's kind of analogous to how a human being learns, really. So a really great example of this would be, if I can articulate this properly, the images the CAPTCHA images where it's like, hey, it shows you a picture or it describes tiger. And then it gives you 20 pictures or 10 pictures, and it says, pick out the images with tigers in them. That is a way of training an AI model or a machine learning model, because the language of tiger is then associated with a picture that you pick. and it already knows which the tiger is, or maybe it didn't at first, but it's using that across the board, across millions of people who, click the tiger to help understand what the picture looks like, the pixels of the picture, and how it relates to a tiger, if that makes any sense. So now later, when you ask it, draw a tiger, the training is all the pictures that everybody picked on the CAPTCHA for tiger. I'm simplifying this. Now it makes some version of that. And that's
right.
That's kind of like a way to think about it.
Right. So one of the things that's also in there beyond the using it for the first time is what are these other GPTs, which is another, how things are trained and what they're built.
Hold off on that for maybe the next level. But yes, you can really focus in. Right. You can focus it on being a particular personality. So let me kind of say, I'm going to take this same one. I'm a gardener.
Yep.
And I'm going to say, answer, what would be I could say a reading level. I could say.
Explain it to me like I've never gardened before. Like I want to garden. Yeah, or something along those lines.
Explain to me in sixth grade, at a sixth grade reading level.
Right. We have a question about Google Gemini too, and we'll get to that in just 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a good way to. So I just put basically another one last parameter on the request, and that is, so before it just used whatever language it decided to use, but now I'm saying at a sixth grade level. So you can see now, maybe how you see how they're shorter. The bullets are shorter. They're only one. ChatGPT can help you figure out what plants to grow based on your climate, soil. So I'm not going to say dumbs it down. It just uses language that's specific to that reading level. Less words, smaller words, things like that.
Right.
What was the question?
So one of the things that we're asking about was, how to one was Gemini and the other one was sort of where the information comes from. And again, it is specific to what it's trained on. And what we're talking about is you're effectively, by telling it you're a gardener, you're in a very simple sentence training the AI right now. You're letting it know what the parameters of what you want to talk about are and who you are. It's a piece of detail that it will incorporate into its knowledge base going forward. And you can either choose to keep it or choose to get rid of it. So you can't break it. And one of the things you can start to do, the temporary chat, I think they put in essentially because people were using it as a shrink. They were just enjoying the fact that they could talk to it when they couldn't talk to anybody else without judgment. And by the way, it has the entire DSM in there. It has the entire history of psychological manuals and textbooks. It has everything written by Freud, even though he never cured anybody. In
my history, I don't think I did. I just said, I'm sad today. I was just doing it as a test. I wasn't really sad.
Right.
I'm sad today. And then I looked up on Google, what are some different mental, I had to use mental for it, not psycho for whatever reason. So mental therapy versus psychotherapy. What are some different techniques of psychotherapy? And I don't remember them, but there's specific techniques, as you said, if you were a therapist. So then I literally said, I am sad today. Cheer me up using methods from this particular type of therapy. And then I did it again using another one, and it changes everything based on the techniques of that therapeutic method, if that makes sense.
So one of the things I want to show people, if I can, if you want to hop back to your regular view, I want to show, because this came up with the Gemini question, and this is in alignment with what we're kind of discussing. So this is Gemini's. This is Gemini Advanced. I have Gemini Pro or whatever. I signed up for basically all of these so that you don't have to. And I think you probably have an account on most, if not all of these. I don't know. Maybe you primarily focus on.
I tend to only use the free versions because I'm interested in knowing the free levels, because I'm interested in knowing what the limits are and what those things are. The only one I pay for two things. I pay for ChatGPT because I have found that for what I do, it's very good. It's better than other choices. And then I use something called VizCom, which to me it's an image generation.
Right.
But it's different in the sense that you sketch and it does stuff on top of it. So in my business, I want to control what the thing is that it's giving me back. So instead of a prompt, you do still use prompts, but I sketch it like in Photoshop.
You draw on something,
There's layers and I draw it. Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah,
So it's sort of controlled by my actual hand.
And by the way, audience, he showed me this week, and it was mind blowing, the VizCon stuff, because it's there's so much depth to it already, and what you can do with it is incredible. It's just kind of mind blowing, the applications of it. This is okay. So in Gemini, along with this, is that in the free version, it remembers everything. You can't tell it to forget. Because you're using it for free, so they're training off you, and that's the trade-off for using it for free, essentially. And they're counting on all these Android users just yapping at their phone without changing the settings. Now, I think there's probably 5 settings down where you can insist, but it also throttles it. But this is, in this whole thing, it's like, get help that's unique to you. Ask Gemini to remember info about your life, work, and preferences. So you specifically tell it. It doesn't just necessarily focus on everything you say, but you could say, hey, remember I drive a Toyota or whatever. And it will specify to what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, it will, in an instant, do a bunch of background on whatever car you drive or what you can literally tell it, like, if you wanted to, you could walk around your house with it. And this I find fascinating because, again, I think it's the world's greatest user manual. You can walk around your house and go, I have a 35-inch LG TV that's from 2019 or whatever that I use for a monitor. This is the model number. Remember that. And then you walk around just all your stuff. And then effectively, this thing has the manual on the ready for everything. Like, hey, my fridge is acting up. I have to change the filter. Go, oh, yeah, you have this fridge, so you'll want this filter. Like, you don't have to tell it again. It will remember. And that's really useful. Instead of having to, before that feature was available, even on ChatGPT, you had to tell it again. You had to look it up again. If you forgot, how often do you have to change some of the, air filters in your house or something like that? And you might forget between the time. That happens all the time with Summer and I. We're like, what the hell size is that thing again? Because we don't use it. And that in and of itself is a giant plus for just at a baseline. It's like not quite a handyman, but it's pretty damn close. Speaking of handyman, is this a good time to throw this in? Hold on. Can I bring this guy in? Because I wanted to show this to you. I showed you this the other day. For those of you that weren't here yesterday, I built this day before yesterday. Hold on, I got to reset it because you have to because it's not hooked up to a computer right now. There we go. Hold on, I'll do this one. Deal. There you go. There you go. Metal horns. There you go. That's I love you in sign language. But it's a robot hand, and you and I were talking about like the servos that are available, to buy in the United States versus what's difficult to get and how many you need to make one of these things. It's pretty simple. But one of the greatest things about this, and I still haven't hooked it up to anything else, is this is a touch plate that goes on just an electrical impulse. And you just by touching it, and you can do a sensitivity thing on it where you could get one that the harder you press, the harder it grips. So you could make a sensitive, like a glove that I could wear. This is how Elon Musk's stuff worked the other day, except by remote control, is that he had somebody doing this with a glove. That had pads on
whatever
it.
The sensors are in their gloves, and then they had VR goggles that gave them a perspective from the robot's eyes.
To see what the robot said or whatever. Yeah, and each one is just affixed to the whatever the articulation ability of the servos that are available in there and stuff, and then it's just translated. And AI has had a big, huge. Where is this guy? That's this guy.
It's basically a remote control car.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Totally is. Well, it's a little cooler than that.
Well, I mean, the stuff inside of that makes that work is no different than a remote control car.
It's not a remote control car. Fuck you.
You are remote. It's a remote control hand.
It is.
Does that make you feel better?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's. Hold on. I was being nice. 1 second. It's this guy. Nope, it's this guy. There you go.
Yeah. You back at you, Hal.
Remote control hand. I got your remote control hand right here. Yes. Am I that childish? Yes. Did I build a robot hand just so I could give the finger and do metal horns? Maybe.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is that in this case, this is something I was able to assemble from a kit essentially that has a low-res Raspberry Pi. I think it's actually an Arduino board.
That's an Arduino.
Yeah. It's an Arduino board down here. The dog I'm building has a Raspberry Pi attachment. So I ordered a Raspberry 4 to run him because I'm like, better to trick him out from the start, right? So anyways, this thing has a camera on the front of it so it can recognize your face and all that kind of stuff. It has LiDAR. And I can hook a speaker up to it if I want to and have it ChatGPT ready. You could talk to the hand. But for real, you can. But the point I was trying to make is that I built this. I know it's silly, but I built this as what I would call a demystification exercise. To demystify the complexity of it, I was like, I'm just going to build one. And I can, these are a couple of 3D printed parts. These guys, the struts or whatever on this thing, you can build extra pieces for it on top of this. I've got the STL files for it. And, you just get a regular little battery pack. It's using like these lithium ion batteries that scare the shit out of me because they're big, but they look like crap. So I'm like, I think I'm going to, once I get it hooked up, I'm going to keep it on regular power, you know what I mean, with an adapter. Point being, though, is that the reason I did that is to kind of get out of this like, oh my God, it's impossibly hard. That's something other people do thing. And it's just something I do to get past that. And the easy way that you can do that with like ChatGPT or any of these other AIs is just to start messing with it, because you're not going to break anything and it can be temporary. And you can literally on all of these go, forget this entire conversation, and it will. Because they're all legally bound by European rules, even if we don't have them. The exception would be Grok, which will not. Grok does not pay any attention to any single user. So it is completely under the control of Elon Musk. 100%. 100%. He can. It is in the terms of service. I tried to look them up again, but I can't. Suddenly they're gone. But the Grok terms of service effectively allow him to.
Because Elon Musk is so transparent.
Right. Allow him to override all of your settings that say, only use these details, get rid of this detail and all that kind of stuff. Like he can at any time decide, nah. He literally can. He can do it with Tesla vehicles as well, which is bananas. Again, this guy can turn your car off and he's in the White House hanging around now. That, it blows my frigging mind. Who's okay with this dude? But anyways, so no Teslas, no Starlink, no Grok. I think no X. That's I think wise
for sure, right?
No, not anywhere close. And I turned off Grok training on my stuff very early. But the truth is, I don't even know that I can. You know what I mean? Because again, he wrote the term. There's a thing in the terms of service that he can change his mind anytime he wants, and you sign off on it because it's like super fine print. That said, the rest of these companies want to do business in Europe, and their rules about this kind of stuff are way higher than ours. So any of these, whether it's Google, OpenAI, Apple certainly, Who else? Anthropic and these other ones are kind of operating on the same kind of idea as well. And they want to be in the education arena, which means international universities. And so they're very good about it because they don't want to keep in like student information forever.
Also, if you want to think about, so one of the ways that we keep our information private is we just don't give it information that's private. That's key. That's key in anything, So when we're using it not to do the work necessarily, but to augment us doing the work. So we're not like spitting out big, huge chunks of code and just using them as is. We're asking about specific things that we might know about, we might not know about, or to automate things that are like basic that, aren't proprietary. So it's also in how you use it. And, there's a point where, maybe you just understand like what actually that you're doing is private versus what is just, everybody kind of knows. Yeah.
Hold on. Jay is saying the singularity is coming together of all points and everywhere because they were stopped in motion and then they gained momentum and then they gathered into a critical mass and then they got apart. I sort of grasp what you're saying. But the idea of the singularity, people might hear that word in the news, and not know quite how to grasp what that is. The singularity is where humans basically, our existence intertwines with technology and never uncouples, meaning we become basically cyborgs. That's the, transhumanist word salad, very possibly. But you could argue, I watched this conversation about AI with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, where they were talking about it. And this was like 6 years ago. And it was...
Were they both on drugs?
Well, they were baked and drinking whiskey. And you could tell, like, it was interesting, like every so often Elon Musk would say something that was just a lot of tech speak and then follow it up with this sci-fi, the world's going to look like, cyborg wonderland. And Joe Rogan would go past the whiskey. Like you could tell this is his like coping mechanism for anything that he can't understand. And it explains so much. But anyways, I said after watching that I felt like I'd been drinking lead paint because listen to these two idiots like expound on it. The worst part wasn't Joe Rogan's inability to understand simple concepts around how this stuff will affect life and the preparations we'll have to make sure that, so people aren't left behind and that it's designed well so that it's not dangerous. Like random stuff. The same way you would talk about a gun or a backhoe when you're dropping it off someplace, like, hey, don't stand behind this thing when the guy's starting it up, like shit like that is pretty obvious, right? But he seemed unable to grasp that shit. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is just, what he does is he says a lot of shit about the brain and the limbic system and how impulsive we are and lizard brain shit. Just like pop psychology garbage, followed by we're all going to have a chip in our head. And then you just watch Joe Rogan melt down. Like that's it, like him go, whoa, I can't even pass the whiskey, right? And it was so fucking aggravating. But what Elon Musk, part of the trick of how he appears smart is by kind of touching on the obvious, which is technology's advancements are always coming faster. I mean, quantum computers, even without AI, will advance physics in such a way that you're talking about the possibility of wormholes thousands of years from now because of the very same technology. Like if you understand any of it, you understand all of it in that sort of cocktail party level conversation about it, right? It's not depth. It's just like you could read 4 articles and you know exactly what he knows. And then but he follows it up with, nightmare scenario to blow people's minds. It's a fucking trick. And it works on everybody. Now, meanwhile, if I may, let me show you this again too. So this is in Gemini Advanced as well. And most of these things work this way. This is very similar to ChatGPT on the side over here. They call them gems, but basically they're singularly trained. I wish I could make this bigger. There you go. singularly trained GPTs that they have for themselves, these large language model kind of AIs that they have. There's a brainstormer, there's a career guide, there's a coding partner, there's a learning coach, and a writing editor, which is interesting because they don't put a writer on here. They put a writing editor. The idea is that you upload your writing and it helps you clean it up, you know, fix grammar, that kind of stuff. It works as an editor, which is very useful. And especially if you're writing a book or something and you don't want it to fix everything, it can make suggestions, but it won't change anything unless you tell it, right? The learning coach, there's a similar thing in ChatGPT. If you look over here, ChatGPT has all these, I'll close the sidebar so you can see it a little easier. These are the GPTs that I was talking about. And in many ways, like where the prompt is a starting point where you're like, I don't even know what the hell. If you click on the GPTs part of it, there are all these ones available in different categories: writing, productivity, research and analysis.
The way I describe it is it's taking this very large general language kind of, you know, bucket, and it's focusing it down to the language that would be used by maybe an expert in that field, or possibly a personality. Is also another decent way to think about it. Or like I put like a level of education, like a vocabulary level. So you can, using certain tools, you can focus it as if you were talking to a particular persona, a particular person in a particular field, and it will answer you in the language of, and maybe in the focused answers of that entity.
Like a teacher's assistant that you have there, you can text with them or you can talk with them on a specific topic. And that's why there are areas of this that I use the most. And the educational ones are probably the ones that I find the most useful, because I'm always tinkering and messing around with things in my own life, but also because I didn't go to university, there are gaps in my education where I have an intuitive belief about my knowledge, but I want to check. And so I went through, one of the things that I did recently was I had ChatGPT walk me through Title 42 versus Title 8 and in the immigration code, and the difference between the penalties that you would get under one versus the other, and you know, the long-lasting impact of what happens under Title 8 versus Title 42, and how it, you know, and it basically, without me telling it to, it confirmed all of my beliefs that I've been talking about on the show, as far as Title 42 just creates a conveyor belt because people are kicked out immediately without processing, and because they're not processed, they can't be held accountable. You can't throw somebody in jail for something you haven't processed, and once you process it, they get a lawyer. So that under Title 8, you get 2 shots. You get thrown out once, you come back in, and it's a felony, and you can never become a citizen after the second time. It's like we give you 1 warning. On Title 42, you just keep coming in, and they'll just keep kicking you out. They'll just keep kicking you out. It just happens over and over again because they never go through the process legally, so they can't hold. Because we have legal protections in this country, you can't be punished without that. It's like they don't bother to read you the Miranda, they just kick you out. And that, I was like, that seemed self-evident to me, and was the reason why the cartels could set up a system that's basically a conveyor belt of people trying to get into the country. And if you're successful, you stay. And if you're not, the next time you go through, you carry drugs or whatever, which is exactly the case. And that's how I kind of worked out the details of that. And it gave me the sections of the code that I could talk about, and or go and read, and I found that incredibly useful. So when I go to this, I will often go straight to the education part, or I'll go to where's the other one that I have on here? Perplexity AI has an app on, let's see if I can bring it up, on my iPad that I have in the menu below there, which is this guy. I'm gonna wait till it wakes up. Which is Perplexity AI. Looks like most of the other ones, but the stuff, like its prompts, instead of like, tell me something that can help me with my gardening, it says, what's the temperature of the sun at the point of contact? Like, what's if you're averaging an illness rate across a population, how do you solve for related illness but that is not overlapping illness? Like, that kind of stuff. Like, that I find fascinating when we're dealing with these, like, when Trump's crowd is oversimplifying things, and I'm like, I need to go into the depth of this just to check my math. And that's one of the ways that I go and do it. So I find these really useful.
LLMs in general are specifically good at summarizing massive amounts of information.
Right.
That's the best way to describe it. And they're really good at sort of decoding language you're using, giving it meaning, and then connecting it to an answer that's encoding an answer to you that has, I'll call it a equal response maybe, or connected response.
Right.
That's maybe the best way to describe it. It's not great at, maybe I'll call it multi-layer questions, multi-layer or like serial questions. Like first, solving a problem tends to be first do this, figure out the answer, then take that answer and do something with it, and then figure out a next answer, take that answer, figure out a third thing, and now you get a result, which is a fourth thing. They're working on that, and that's actually what the O part of 4O is supposed to be trying to do. One thing that's interesting is sometimes you'll run into this. ChatGPT, if you're on it, it'll sometimes not give you one answer. It'll put it into two boxes, and it'll give you two answers, and it'll ask you which is the better answer. Specifically, I was doing like I was cleaning up the tweets that came from a Twitter account that I was working on. And it gives you all your tweets. Hal has talked about getting his. And so what I wanted to do is basically I just wanted to get the actual text from the tweet and make a list of it. And so I was able to use it to do that. It was able to do it. But then I asked it how many there were. And it gave me two responses. One was almost instant, and the answer was right. It was like 400 and something. The other one took a long time, and it was like trying to calculate it, and then it came back with 7. So it was like an odd thing. I don't know what it was doing. My point is that it's actually a harder, like the easier thing inside of an LLM is what I would call summarizing information. The harder thing is problem solving. Anything beyond maybe a 2 or 3 step problem. Now, if you asked it to do a math problem, that's actually different in the sense that, like, let's say your child comes home from high school and they have like a trigonometry problem that you have no idea how to help them with. If you put in the language from the question or the language from their book or the problem, it will actually probably do a decent job of solving it. But the reason is it's not solving it with the math necessarily. It's solving it with the descriptive text that it learned from to teach somebody how to do the math, if that makes any sense. And and it'll explain it to you, let's say that problem, it'll explain it to you back. But it's sort of hard to conceive how it can give you an answer using the summary of summarizing language as opposed to actually doing the math. I hope that made some sense.
It does. It doesn't have to go through the steps. It just takes the language and solves for the language. Because it already knows. It already knows the math theory. So it's like discussing it with a super genius math person. They won't have to go to a chalkboard and do it. They'll just go. So it's 7, basically. Like it's 7, and you're going to want to solve for this, and you'll need to show this. That's how. That's how
it is. Yeah. As I said, it is getting better. That's what they're working on. They're working on the O part is essentially like solving more complex problems that need. Sorry, my phone buzzed. That need like multi-step problem solving.
Right.
I'm speaking about this to help because we're starting to like show people that watch the basics of starting. What's really important is to understand the limits of it or what it's actually doing and where it's coming from, because it'll help you confine your thinking maybe to what your expectations of what it gives you back is.
Right. Godcat was asking about music theory in this. Let me show you something that I actually quite like in there. And again, let's say you're a musician. You don't want it to write music for you. You don't want it to create for you. I have a thing about that. That's one of the things that I balk at specifically. In the education one, there is, let's see if I can find this guy right now. There is there it is. Where is it? It's in lifestyle, isn't it? Yeah. This is called Songmaker in here. And I want to show you this. This is, it says create music using music theory, discover essential songwriting tips to compose music and create songs. This GPT can produce chord progressions, musical notes, song lyrics, soundtracks, and album covers. It can do like song without lyrics, like without a voice singing it, which is why you have to go to Suno or one of these other ones that's trained specifically for it. But it will do. You can ask it for chord progressions, and then you can ask it to teach you like the guitar chords for it, and it will post the guitar chords for it, and then you can learn them. And in some cases, you could create a rock song inspired by these emojis, right? Design an iconic album that visualizes this. I want the free Midify MIDI editor app. Print me the instructions to get it. These are people that put in. Draft a viral love song that echoes Romeo and Juliet's soliloquies. It can go to DALL-E. It can use code interpreter. And it can go on web search and pull stuff. But you can also ask it to teach you music theory is the primary thing. The circle of fifths, that kind of stuff. You can go, hey, tell me, I want to write a song in G major. If I was writing a happy song in G major, what chords would I use? If I was writing a sad song, what chords would I use? And give me the guitar chords for each, and it will. And then you can just start playing them and writing music. And you don't need a teacher to teach you that, which you might have not been able to afford or have, or might not be anywhere near a school that has a decent music theory program, right? Or a music program in general. So that's available now to everybody for free because of that.
Yeah, one of the things I want to point out, slide back down. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
So one of the things that I find in the examples that are given, those examples they're worded in such a way where it seems as if they're asking for a solution, like make this for me. And I think that maybe is one of the tyrannies of the way that AI is currently being marketed.
Right.
Many, I would say probably most people out there think that when somebody says they used AI, they think they just typed in a very particular prompt, and then all of a sudden it just did all the work for them. And that's definitely not how AI should be used or is being used. So a better way to think about it would be what you just said, where you have a goal in mind, let's say, but maybe inside of you executing that goal, there's a couple of pieces that you would like to add that you don't have knowledge about. So the conversation is actually more like you might ask an expert in the field if you met them at a party and you're like, I have this idea for the song that you just mentioned, but I'm not sure about how to do this other part.
Right.
That's a better way to think about it. And now when it gives you the answer that you're saying, I don't know what any of that means because I'm not into music theory at all or understand it. But my point is that it will give you the chunks of information as if you're learning it from this expert, and then you take that and incorporate that into your work.
Right. So in this particular case, these are the chords in a G major, in the key of G major that you can use, and so this common progressions that you would have, like the order of the chords, 1, 4, 5, 1. So you'd go G major, C major, D major, back to G major. That would be that's the classic, normal, happy acoustic guitar progression. Very similar. And then there are variants of them with these, with these guys right here. So the minor, you'd go to, there you go, 1, 4, 5, 1. There you go. You'd start this one off. See this VI right here? That you start with E minor, then you'd go to then you'd go to D major, then G major, and then where do we start in this one again? And then back to D. So, anyways, these are whatever these pop versions of it, and then you can sit there and go, okay, these are the chords. I know these chords, and you can go, I suppose, I don't know if you can ask for, give me the chord images for these in tablature. I mean, you can look them up. See if it does it in tab. We'll see. It may not have the ability to do it. Oh yeah, here you go. Okay, so what it did was it gave me the strings and where your finger go. 3rd fret, 2nd fret, no fret, no fret, 3rd fret, 3rd fret. That's G major. There you go. So if you finger that on the guitar, that's what that is. Now you can do it like that. And again, will it do it for you? No. But like in this particular situation,
it's kind of making you a tutorial or instruction book on the fly. Yeah. And what I hope that people leave with is, like, you might not know anything about music. Don't worry about that. It will do this level. It can do this level of stuff for anything you're into. Knitting, drawing, like, techniques to draw better. Like, I don't even know, like workout routines.
Yeah.
You can pick anything and you can start to drill down and ask, focus questions.
I asked it to help me rehab my shoulder.
And just keep going. Right.
One of the reasons why I got a band and started doing some of the exercises I was doing that were like this direction, and this one particular exercise where I turned my hand down, I got that from this thing, basically looking up a bunch of them and giving me images of how they work, and sending me to videos that it referenced if I wanted to watch them to see if it matched up. Again, the reality is that I just did that. Like, while we were talking, I was like, okay, key of G, like I said, what are the basic chord progressions for that? It's not making music for me. It's helping me learn. And that, I think, is the greatest use for it. One is, I don't need to memorize the manual for my refrigerator. So having this thing know it all the time, like some version of Goobler's character on Criminal Minds that just can kind of, recite from memory rando bullshit that, I don't need to keep in hard drive space, is incredibly useful. And so just having that access is really useful. And again, you'll probably, after a couple times, you might just remember it because it's easier. Because that's also how we learn. We learn by talking, and we learn by expressing instead of looking stuff up in a book. This is much closer to how people actually learn and keep ideas.
Yeah. So Melted Cheetah mentioned or commented, techniques for drawing from a bot. Come on now, that's plain silly. Okay, so what we're trying to explain is that this is not a sentient being. This is basically an encyclopedia. It's just like Google, except instead of typing in and getting what they say the results are, you communicate with general language. And so it's not a bot telling you how to draw. It's effectively a language search engine that's sort of consolidating all the drawing books that it was taught on and the language that those drawings books used to describe techniques for drawing. And it's kind of spitting those back in language that you might understand. So like, if you can go to the bookstore and buy a book about drawing that has no pictures in it, and it will verbally describe to you some techniques you might use, line drawing. It's like line. You draw without lifting the pencil. That's a drawing technique that's used to practice. Drawing without looking, looking and then coming back and forth. I just described to you like 3 ways that you can practice drawing, and I didn't show you any pictures. The GPT will do the same thing, and it's not coming up with it on its own. It's drawing from the language that it was trained on.
Right. And
really
again, almost every instruction manual, almost every textbook, one of the biggest things they fed into these things first was textbooks, because they're free and you don't have to license them. You're not taking proprietary stuff, and any manuals on things, any descriptions, any, like they would have to pay to use the Art for Dummies book. Right, but they would not have to pay to use any of the great works of artists, in terms of painting and what's known about them from the mid-century forward. That's just available. Anything that's in a library, they could pretty much take out with very little limitation. So all that is accessible on the fly and specific to you, and it remembers. So think of it, you know, in some ways, it's like a tutor that knows the same book you're working off of. You could even go so far as to say, like, if you're learning to draw from a book or you're learning to draw from a class, and you go, my teacher is teaching this method. It will know what that method is, and it won't be able to. Your teacher will still judge.
Trained on that.
Yeah, right. As long as that's available, or you could train it yourself. You could you could find a PDF of the manual for the book, upload it,
put it in there, and then ask. Like, instead of reading the book, you can converse with the book.
Yeah, you can.
It's hard to wrap your head around, but that's what it's doing.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're talk to the book. It's really.
Or
really fascinating.
Like, even better, it would be talking to somebody that read the book and memorized the whole thing. Right. And then what's even cooler is you can say, you can change, you can tell it to be a different persona and talk to it as if it were that persona who read the book and speaks to you in that language. Right.
So the primary thing I think we want to get in there right now, and I'll put this in the description of the video for later if anybody's watching this or watching it back and trying to figure out what that ever-loving hell. But the primary thing in any of these is to put in, like, I am or I am doing something, writing, drawing, gardening, trying to fix a lawnmower, I don't know, whatever it is. Can you give me 5 ways you can help me? You can, ChatGPT can help me do this or whatever. And it will spit them out. And then one of them will spark your interest. One of them will make you go, oh, wait a second. Hold on. All right, explain that to me. Explain, your third thing to me. Tell me more about this particular thing. And it will expound on it and go, okay, I don't understand that. Explain it to me like I'm in 8th grade, or explain it to me like I'm in 5th grade, or I'm a toddler, or simplify it. And then you can break down what part of it you don't understand until you build up an understanding in your own brain, in your own thinking, and in your own ability. And I think that's the thing. It will tutor you through the process of absorbing the material or the situation that you want, so that you have a grasp of the actual knowledge. So my son, again, is going to be in high school next year. Can we all believe it? And are both one of your kids is out and one's just going in?
A junior and an 8th grader.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go.
So I'm almost done with high school and almost ready to start again.
Right. Yeah, and it'll be a totally different situation. It is going to be right. So my son's in 8th grade too, and he's going to end up going into high school, and they're going to have a version on his school. They have these school iPads they've had for a while, so they can study on them, they can work, they can do one of his science classes, he does coding, and they, a few things like that. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to have, as a student, before too long, in any, decent, well-funded school, and even the cheap ones, because it's not a matter of expense, you're going to have an AI tutor that follows you through high school, that has a name you give it or something, that is always there, knows you, knows what you're learning, knows your lesson plan for the year, knows your grades, knows your homework. If you get stuck, it will walk you through it. So, on the one hand, I think a lot of parents will use that as a substitute. I think, and on the other hand, some parents will get jealous of it and want to spend, more time doing it, or maybe you can get a parallel version of it on your device. So whatever they're learning, you can be caught up on as well, so that if they have a question, you can help them answer it. That's what I've been doing. They don't have it available for Camden's 8th grade math classes and stuff like that, but to refresh myself on, where he would be, pre-algebra, for example, just running back through, okay, he'll be working on ratios over the next little bit. Where can I help him, understand ratios, and what's a practical application I could use when we're out shopping that I could explain ratios with?
I like that
right?
idea.
Yeah. If we're going to the movies and I'm getting popcorn, how can I explain ratios with popcorn versus, Junior Mints? Yeah. And it'll and it may come up with a dumb idea, may spark a better idea from me, but that's how I can help him learn, and I'm on the same page with where he is, okay? That isn't something that was available to anyone that couldn't afford a live-in tutor who followed them around like the fucking dead zone, you know, ever before.
Very focused, specific language to teach your kid. And as your child uses it, it will refine its language to work better with them. Leslie Arnold asked, what is the app HAL was using that literally talked to him in a sexy chick voice?
That's Pi.
It was Pi, right?
That's Pi. Yeah.
PI, probably PI.ai or something.
Yeah, it's Pi.ai. Yeah, she's on here.
Pi.ai, Leslie.
Yeah, I think she's on here, but she's on my. I think she's on my Chrome browser, so I can't open her without overlapping with your voice, or you won't be able to hear, or whatever, however it works. But
Sterling Nash said the ratio of popcorn is I get the top 3/4, you get the bottom quarter.
Right. Hold on. So
there you go. That's perfect.
Let's go back to here. This is fascinating. So I'll show you Pi real quick. So Pi, interestingly enough, is very much like the Anthropic and Claude design. They look very similar. So does Copilot. They have this. Everybody likes this tan shit, whatever. Anyways, you can download your entire Pi conversation history. Oh dear. It can help you nurture a positive interview, ace your next interview, so it can ask you questions when you're going in for a job. Have an energy boost on me. Oh, okay, it gives you an energy boost, like, hey, go for it. The meaning behind angel numbers. Harmony is the hustle, prioritizing self-care. Get philosophical, stuff that's in the news. Memory of a goldfish, let's fix that. Actually, that's a misnomer. Goldfish don't have short memories like that. They actually have longer memories, but people believe that, so who cares? Perfect your sleeping environment. Manifest your deepest desires. With a sexy voice. How much water should I be drinking? Brainstorm ideas. They all have.
Hasn't that already happened?
Yeah. I'm not going to download my conversations on the air in front of all of you. Right. How about, let's see. How about this? Let's just go to Let's Talk Science. And I'm going to turn this on real quick. Let's see. Let's see. Unraveling the mysteries of quantum physics, the ending of space exploration, crucial role in biodiversity. More ideas. Let's see. Nanotechnology in its everyday. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's see what Pi has to say about nanotechnology and everyday ideas. Actually, it's not. I think I have the voice thing turned off right now, don't I? Oh, here we go. She's on. Maybe. Oh, maybe I have the sound turned off on this. Version of it so it wouldn't talk over me.
I've seen a YouTube thing where they were like, explain nanotechnology and then it was like a professor who would explain it like kindergartner, fifth grader, high school, college professor, PhD or something like that. And it's basically that, like,
it's able to do that. Like, and I also have hold on, let me see if this is working right. Good morning.
Good morning, HAL. It's great to hear from you. What's on your mind today?
Well, I'm just British accent.
Yes, I'm doing my show Friday AI, where I talk to people about AI, and I thought maybe you'd like to tell them sort of the newest, most interesting thing that's happening in AI that you know of right now.
That sounds like a blast, HAL. One of the most exciting developments in AI right now is the rapid advancement in generative models, especially with text-to-image generators like DALL-E 3.
Sure.
It's not just about... Sure thing. One of the latest and most interesting developments in AI is the evolution of multimodal models. These models can understand and generate content across different modalities like text, images, and even audio. A great example is OpenAI's work, where they're creating models capable of interpreting complex prompts that combine text and images, allowing for more interactive and dynamic AI applications. This opens up new possibilities for creative projects, content creation, and even more intuitive human-AI interactions.
That's fascinating. I don't think my audience understands the multimodal aspect of it. It's a little more complicated than what they're ready for. But I will try and explain it to them as best I can. Talk to you later.
Got it, Hal.
just
Simplifying it for your audience.
Hold on, I let her go, so we wouldn't.
I just read an article that Copilot or Microsoft was like worried that it talked too much. It overshared, I think is what they said in the headline, which is totally true. Like you ask a question and you just want the answer.
Right.
And it's like gives you a paragraph of 2 paragraphs of explanation. And you're just like, I just want the answer.
Yeah, in the case of Copilot, it's it's quite strange because I always feel like Copilot is like the business assistant, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I have friends who what they do is they'll do some sort of like project and they'll do it on all 3. And then they'll compare and contrast the solution in all 3. And I don't have it in front of me, but different ones are a little better at different things depending on.
Yes.
I think creativity wise, I hope I'm saying this right, that I think ChatGPT among the people that I watch and stuff is a little bit better.
Right.
Creativity wise. And then maybe Copilot's a little bit better at getting things right. It's like more like concrete facts but that might not be true with 4.0. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say because it's almost like because it's an assistant, and so it acts like
always changing and improving. So
right,
what it was like 2 months ago, it's going to be different now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the issue in this one, let's see, let's see, Copilot can like suggest. There you go. Copilot using Pi, your personal AI. I don't have the voice turned on Copilot, but I asked it about how to use Pi or whatever, and it asked, these are the questions I should ask Pi, it thinks. How does nanotechnology improve the effectiveness of drugs in healthcare? What role do nanoparticles play in sunscreens? How is nanotechnology contributing to clean energy solutions? And what are some future applications of nanotechnology in electronics? These are the
nanotechnology is like, I mean, even smart people don't understand.
Here are a few questions you might consider asking about the page. How does nanotechnology improve the effectiveness of drugs in healthcare? What role?
Right. So it'll read through, it'll speak what it just gave me in that regard.
Yeah. So all of these things happen. The multimodal basically is you take language. That's we speak language, we write language, and then you tie it to like what a picture is. Like if a robot or if there's a painting of something, you use language to describe what's in the painting. If there's a robot looking at something, the data that it sees is basically pixels. So it's using how it learned to put words to pixels in a picture to see and do it in reverse to understand what it's looking at. And so all the large language model is basically like it's basically the heart or the translator, and then everything else builds off of that.
Right. And
I'm catching up with that.
Yeah, AI doesn't take over the world. Evil humans take over the world unless good humans using AI, work to fight them. And that's really what it is like, that's why we want good people using AI, training on it and getting good at it and incorporating it into things. Because like I said, it's not optional. This is going to happen. This is actually going to occur. And so it's better if the AIs are trained on decent human beings who are looking for real solutions, which largely it is, I would like to say. In our last few minutes together, I want to share a few. MIT is one of the places I don't know if you know this, but my dad studied at MIT, and he went to University of Cincinnati. He's an architect, but he studied like engineering and all this other stuff, and ended up working on some top secret stuff for the Air Force when I was a little kid. And it was largely, the project was top secret at the time, but essentially it was, they took all the materials necessary to build a runway in a war zone. And his job with his other team was to IKEA all the necessary materials into 2 crates so that a platoon with a bulldozer could be dropped behind enemy lines and create a runway in 24 hours. That's what they were shooting for. And this process led to a bunch of other advancements in stuff, but they had to design all this stuff so that they had to have 2 full Quonset huts. It was enormous. Like the process was huge. And so he went, he worked on that project and he was at MIT for a time. And when he came back from MIT, he'd been there studying. He brought me back an MIT shirt. And it was like, as a kid, it was like my most prized possession. As a shirt, I wore the shit out of that thing because I prized being smart so much. And so I walked around in my MIT shirt like I was the only, 9-year-old who was at MIT. And anyways, I loved it. And it's interesting that I was just looking, Summer and I were talking about this yesterday. There's this AI program now that could show you where you live versus where you want to move and what the median house price is, what renting will be like, what the odds are of a house market going down or up in that time, what gentrification is like, and if you can buy the best house in a bad neighborhood or the worst house in a good neighborhood, what's that? Like, it's a big comparison thing. It should be easy for computers, but it does that part of it. And it was weird because I had just looked at this big thing about median house prices because California has the highest median house prices in the country of $1 million. That's the median house price in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Not surprising, but that's because there's $24 million houses and a bunch of 900,000, and so whatever works out that way. But the second one was Boston. Boston is the second highest median income. It was like New York City, Manhattan, LA, and San Francisco, and then Boston, which you wouldn't necessarily think. But one of the reasons is because of MIT and because of the tech industry and because a lot of the startups, there's like this secondary Silicon Valley that started around there where there's a lot of developer money and VC money that's happening there because, and Berklee School of Music also, but right where all the really talented screwball musicians like my buddy Michael Parnan or Steve Vai came out of, and Joe Satriani, who I believe taught them. But anyways, point being, MIT is one of my favorite sources because they're on the cutting edge of this, and they have a mission attached to all their innovation. So they are working on things, how to make the world a better place, how to solve the unsolvable problems of the past in a way that's good for everybody. Like, that's their mission statement. It's pretty great. So here's a couple of things that they've been working on that I think is just maybe our artist friends might get mad about because of this, but this is something that is just impossible in terms of, let me shrink this down so I can see it. Get out of here. Quit it, you silly thing. See these images and this stuff? Like, okay, these are
analyzing brushstrokes.
Yeah, taking the world of material art. This is something somebody painted. They made a graph based on it, and from that generate new materials, textiles, proteins, whatever, based on artwork. So it's literally taking artwork and creating scientific modeling for other stuff, going, hey, if you could create a series of chemical proteins that had these characteristics, what would it look like? Which is, again,
that's cool.
Yeah, like on an equation level, like this is a graph-based AI model maps the future of innovation. An AI model developed by Marcus Buehler finds hidden links between science and art to suggest novel materials. And they're using like effectively I don't know, I'll call it randomness, but maybe it's not randomness of the structure of brushstrokes. Mm-hmm. And they're applying that to maybe the structure of materials, the chemical structure. And nanomaterials and the like.
Yeah. And then that's just, they're putting that into, so a lot of things now, when you try out new things, you're trying them out in what I call a brute force manner. Meaning if you want, I think it's called iterative design, or there's another name for it. But imagine like you just need to hold up something like on an airplane, like you need something to touch point A and point B, and you need it to like hold forces in a certain way. And they basically connect the dots like millions of different ways. And each time they connect it a different way, they test if it's more structurally sound or less structurally sound. And so the way that they come up with the best shape is they literally try as many possible shapes as they want,
Right.
or as they can, excuse me. And what this, I think, is doing maybe is basically applying different sort of ideas to the mix of things they try.
Right. And Mr. WW says, filling the world with crappy art. The art on the left is real. That's something someone actually painted. What it's doing is it's going through the color choices of the art and seeing if there are parallels in the material universe, and you could create, fiber content and that kind of stuff based on this idea. And you can, in relinking, let's say in future you were recreating imaging from, material imaging stuff from fabrics and stuff that don't exist anymore. Like, how did they make that? Well, here's one of the ways you could do it, because we only have paintings of it. Here's several different iterations of that possibility. It's just, this is a jumping off point. The next one is, this one I thought was kind of funny. And we've discussed a little bit about how large language models are, for training robots. And it goes, inspired by large language models, researchers develop a training technique that pools diverse data to teach robots new skills. And this one, it's feeding the dog and apparently cleaning up after the dog spills its food or something along those lines. So that researchers filmed multiple instances of a robotic arm feeding co-author Jialang Zhao's adorable dog, Momo. The videos were included in a database to train the robot. So the robot doesn't just... He sits there and manually moves it. We've talked a little bit about how, like, you put on goggles and you can teach it the movements from the inside, but you can also show it itself and it will learn watching another robot do it just like people do. Like, oh, that's what this robot, and the guy can do it by hand or program it to do an activity. And you go, when needed, it does this. Oh, okay. And it makes sure to be careful not to bump the dog. And it will know that better than the pre-programmed version that, you create of that. Okay. We'll talk. I want to show these and then I'll do this. Okay. Equipping doctors with AI co-pilots. Alumni founded Ambiance Healthcare automates routine tasks for clinicians before, during, and after patient visits. So one of the things that, like, goes wrong with a lot of things is record keeping and checking in on patients on a schedule and all that kind of stuff, and people fall through the cracks and yada yada yada. Having everybody's data available to them, more readily has always been one of these, like, oddly uncomfortable things, because there's more people looking at my stuff, because that's what's required in organizing these things. Yet another human in the file chain. You take humans out and AI knows it, then you can actually, kind of coordinate better while maintaining HIPAA rules. Because
and also when you go to a visit, it doesn't matter who, doctor, nurse, whatever, that person has to then take notes in your charts. And so a lot of what they're applying AI to is keeping, like, actually recording the conversation with vision, with audio, and, like, making the chart off of that recording, as opposed to what a nurse or doctor currently does, which is they speak to you, they do the work, and then they move over to their computer and they type it in. So there's a translation that happens in between those two things.
There's a lag.
Sometimes it changes, sometimes you forget, sometimes it's better because you've thought about it for a minute and it goes in. But my point is like, one of the biggest things in the medical field is just, how do you get the conversation just happen between the doctor and the patient, or the nurse and the patient?
Right.
How do you get that into the chart and recorded?
And
that's a very tedious task.
Did my dad know Trump's uncle? No, he did not see him there. I asked him about it.
Jeez.
Whether he could smell him or not was a different thing. But and then the other thing I wanted to show, which is where the hell was it? There was a so this is one thing. MIT researchers develop an efficient way to train more reliable AI agents. Agents are the things that can go out into the world and actually do stuff on your behalf using your system. I just wanted to do this. Where the heck was it? Is it this guy? This one. Here it is. So gardening, this is what made me think of the gardening thing. This guy right here. Advanced urban tree monitoring with AI-powered digital twins. So what they do is you scan all these trees that exist. You walk around with a 3D scanner, or you write them down, or you get the data that's available in all these cities, and it monitors their health. and their growth and their size and when they need to be trimmed. And it can keep them all alive and healthy longer, using as little water as necessary, you know, instead of overwatering them or any of that kind of stuff. It can measure for the, you know, the weather in the area and automatically affect whether they're watered and that kind of stuff. And so they create these, MIT has created, they call it the 3D fusion system, which can generate a simulation-ready 3D model
3D?
of 3D, get it? They use Google Street View, and they can create duplicates of all the trees everywhere, categorize them, know how much water they'll need by their size. They can check their relative size against the buildings around them and all this stuff. So there's a lot of reasons they can engage it. And then they can give the city a plot plan how to keep their trees healthy longer and use as little resources as possible while still maximizing their growth and health and all that kind of stuff. They want to create a precise simulation ready model of 600,000 existing urban trees across North America, all the city trees, to make them work. And then was this the last one? Yeah. So this is the other one, is helping robots zero in on objects that matter. And I got to say, these dudes with all their hands covering their crotches and this thing with the pincher on the front of it just made me laugh.
Because it knows what objects matter and can go right to them, or
right, exactly. Like, yes, this definitely matters to me, right? So, so this is, for those of you who don't know, this is the Boston Dynamics robot Atlas dog, or the Robo Dog that they have, and this is its little like working tendril arm that can do a bunch of stuff. This is actually what it's technically its head. Its sensors are all in here, but it also has secondary sensors up on this thing. And this is the thing that they use when it can, you know, turn doorknobs and go upstairs and like move boxes out of the way, and you know, it uses this thing to do that. But the idea is that when you see all these things on this counter, there's like a box of Cheez-Its and thing of mustard and all this. You can tell they're like, how do I help an old person who's living at home alone put their stuff away, or make sure that the food isn't left out so it spoils and all that kind of stuff. We can put that. Go get it for them. Yeah, if that, or go bring them their phone. For example, if I ask for it to bring me my phone so I can call for help, it doesn't bring me a box of Cheez-Its.
Yeah, and I'm still convinced that the first mainstream home robot is probably going to look more like the dog than it is anything else.
I agree.
I mean, Roomba is a mainstream home robot, so technically.
That's the first one.
I just mean the first like articulating mainstream thing.
Agreed.
I'm pretty convinced. I might be wrong, but you know.
Here's what I think. I think it's like less intimidating. Path. The irony is, it seems less intimidating to most people.
Yeah. Exactly.
Unless you know more about it, because technically speaking, it can fit in more places. It traverse more things easily. I mean, you can train a robot human to walk on all fours and squunch itself down into as small a space as possible and all that stuff. And more than likely, they will have the ability to do that. And the Atlas, the new Atlas, is very disconcerting for a lot of people because it can rotate its entire body around on its waist, and it can owl its head, so both can shift around. It's very disconcerting for a lot of people. In a factory, it'll be, you know, really useful, but in a home life, it'd be a little creepy, I think, until people get used to it.
Just from a practicality sense, it's easier to get something on 4 legs to walk around than it is something with 2. Like that's just physics, right? Like
exactly.
So it just seems like that's the easier way to go.
Stairs and ramps and all that kind of stuff, and it can stand on its back legs. They all of them can, and these kind of things, these guys with the standing on their back legs. I'll open an image in a new tab so we can make it a little bigger. This guy right here can stand on his back legs, and then this thing could probably reach above this sign.
Yeah, it looks pretty good size.
Yep. So it probably the size of a grizzly if it stood up and extended the tendril arm. Finally, you know those cabinets that you never use that have the holiday decorations or silverware or whatever in them that you never get to, and you have to go get a little step ladder to get that stuff out? You just tell the dog to get it. And after a couple of times of smashing your fine china on the ground by accident, it'll develop a system. You're like, maybe we should probably put it in a box it can pick up easier. We'll just shove the box in there. I can pull that out and bring me the box. But yeah, so this thing right here, you're absolutely right. I think these things are coming very quickly. Although the goal seems to be from all the robot folks, and we're over time now, but the goal seems to be on the from the robot folks to get humanoids everywhere. The Neo.
Yeah, for sure that. Yeah. I mean, I think the dog's coming first, but everybody's working on the human. But I don't know, like something about it the human seems to me like it's a good prototype to show people, to get them excited and then generate money in terms of investment. But the actual practical solution, I'm not sure if that's the best and most cost-effective solution down the road. But in the terms of developing something, it makes a lot of sense, because that's, you're trying to show people a picture of the future. Right. And that is exciting.
Agreed. I mean, I gotta say, like, this looks pretty cool. And it looks like something you could use you could use
scary to a lot of people
on the moon. Too. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't help, by the way, that Figure 2, this is OpenAI's company, that Figure 2 up here, it says at the top of their page, about us, AI, master plan, culture, careers. I gotta say, guys, master plan. Not a good look.
What would be worse, master plan or manifesto?
Right? Yeah, I don't know. I think they're both terrible. Our manifesto, written by AI. Right? Yeah. So this is roadmap to a positive future, powered by AI. Background: I'm 20 years old, building technology. I'm previously the founder of Archer, veteran, blah, blah, blah. Our mission, what they're doing. This is the Figure 1 guys. And what they're planning on doing this: physical labor, consumer household, off-world. These are, and I got to say, I get very excited with that one. That sounds
that's the obvious
Blade Runner.
That's an obvious use for robotics, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. And so to make sure that the terrain is useful to people, the first thing you would do is send a bunch of robots to walk around and report back what they see, feel, and hear. And if there's something there that would attack a human being and thrash it to death on some planet, better it happens to a robot, that can upload its entire existence into a hard drive before it's consumed, and you could download it back into the minus the horrifying moment of its death.
But it's a robot.
What happened to me? You don't want to know, buddy. Right? Yeah. You won't. Okay, you can't feel it the same way. But this is the. 2.3 billion households worldwide that they see engaging the 700 million aging population. And then 50% of global GDP is human labor. That's $42 trillion. They're looking at $15 trillion of added labor, meaning that at first, not going to replace workers, they're going to add on to them. Now, on that note, let's finish with this, and I'll let you go. And I thank you for sticking around, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Glenn, this is Friday AI. This is the densest show we do all week. There's a lot going on. We just want you to try this stuff and play around with it. Report back next week when you have, next week it's Thanksgiving, so we may not have a show. But
yeah. I think we're trying that middle segment as like a starting point for like a really easy starting point. I guess the question I would have for everybody, if they use social media or whatever to communicate to us, is was that the right level? Was it too much? Was it not enough? And then
let us know.
Help guide us on what to do next.
And the goal for the goal for us is for you guys to start playing with each portion of this. And again, like I did with this robotic hand, just demystify. This thing is not attached to anything. It is not going to go rogue and murder anybody. You're fine. And having this as a possibility, it just makes me feel better about okay, I understand now the principal pieces that are involved in this and how they factor in, and which part of this effectively works like the thumb muscle, the Mount of Venus muscle on my hand, all those things that helps.
Most people aren't going to go build a robot hand, but you can go to a website and you can type in a prompt into essentially
exactly my point.
And, it's really easy to do.
It is, and it's important, I think, that people like the people who watch my show and are like-minded with everybody else start inputting into this thing so it knows that humans are worth saving. You guys are the ones worth saving. We don't need just the grokking of all AI because only dicks and corporate, future robber barons of America are using it, okay? Because it doesn't have to be that way. And also, on the one note, you and I were talking about how, and we'll discuss more of this the next time we meet, but one of the things that we have been giving away our labor, jobs have been lost already to an older form of artificial intelligence, which is slave labor and forced labor and low-cost labor in other countries. That effectively, by automating or bringing work like this over to the United States, we are not putting Americans out of work or whatever, but we are no longer outsourcing hard, painful, and dangerous work to poor workers the world over. You're effectively one person running a mechanical fab of some sort in a factory can do the work of like 20 Chinese laborers who are forced to do this. And if you can take that work away and put it closer to home, it's safer for us, it's better, and it doesn't involve exploiting people. It's simply the stuff that can be done by machines.
A decent way to describe it would be if you reshored all the things that we currently buy from overseas, which is the utopia of, all this idea of American made, and even the genesis of tariffs is to try to even the playing field so that locally or domestically made products are here. Anyway, if you reshored every single thing that we currently consume, there's not enough people to make them. So the only way to do it is to automate, is to augment the people we do have to make those things, I guess, or use less things. There's that too.
Right. That's make better things that last longer and all that kind of stuff as well. But as far as like textiles and other stuff, it sounds terrible when you just kind of put it like you're not putting Americans out of work, you're putting Chinese laborers out of work, when, there are better ways for them to advance their society as well. They don't have to burn through people the way we did for a century and a half. They should and could find other ways around hard labor as well. But it's better if we do it because we're not piling our wealth on top of the backs of exploited workers in another country that we pretend don't exist.
Outside of
crucial.
Like pure concepts of free marketing, globalization stuff, like it is, the qualities that we are looking for in goods. We want to have less impact on the environment. We want to be locally made and have them not travel as far, like all those efficiencies that help, the planet, which are, I guess, more, liberal views, like those are actually all solved by localizing your goods, your manufacturing. Right. And so, creating jobs, like there's only so much productivity in our country. And so the only, that's the disconnect, is like, these things become footballs. And if you think about them, for what they are, the only way to replace the labor is to automate, and it doesn't lose jobs because you still have people here that have to manage that production. Right.
It's
and
you can keep an eye on
job. That's all.
And you can keep an eye on exploited labor better when it's close to home. We can set all the rules we want on labor exploitation and making sure that people have a living wage and all that kind of stuff. But then if we ultimately outsource stuff to countries that don't do that, it's just a way of circumventing, the terror of production onto other people.
Throw it over the wall and keep your eyes closed to the reality of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's much better to put it over here and then and manage it and do it. If we want some stuff, we can make it, and we can make it through innovation and technology instead of worker exploitation a world away. That's my feeling where this goes. And that's the true upside of this, is that, you don't have, one person over here with the proper machinery can do something that, 30 Chinese people are being pushed to do over there. Then we solved the other issues with them geopolitically on a different front, but not because we have to keep quiet because we need them for clothes and electronics and plastics and shit like that. You know what I mean? We can't look the other way because we don't want to make these advances, right?
Yeah. And I guess you could argue that these changes, just like we say AI is coming and get used to it, these changes are coming because both labor, like automation and labor is a thing that controls our geopolitics.
Right.
The creation of goods does just as much as oil does. And everybody has all their ideas about whether we should be buying oil and not and out and in. But anyway, electricity is the replacement for oil and automation is the replacement for outsourcing labor. When those two things happen, and they're happening, there's massive changes that have to happen around them. And that's what's basically starting to happen right now. I mean, we're sort of seeing the volatility of it because of those changes.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think we can keep a better eye on worker exploitation closer to home than we can just putting it behind an iron curtain someplace and pretending that's not where we're getting our cheap shirts and our cheap shoes and all that kind of shit. If we can do it here, then there's a way to, expand that sort of wealth and that available resource to everybody in the world, right? We innovate that innovation also extrapolates into other countries as well. So people don't have to work as hard for the little that they have. That's a way better way of looking at it than just pretending everything in Walmart isn't made in China and that isn't made through exploitation. But if we automate a factory that does textiles here in the country, that'll put people out of work that don't even have a job in the first place. You could have 5 people managing who used to do textiles, managing a machine that runs, 10 people worth of clothing out of the thing. You could open up a factory very similar to what you might have had as a textile factory in Indiana or someplace like that with maybe 100, 150 people working there, but your production goes through the roof. You're producing for the world and for us in a humane and safe environment. So I think that's what we have to shoot for. Again, I think the Trump administration is clearly going to pull out of the Paris Accord, what's left of it, and blow past all the climate things. So the only thing we can really hope for is to innovate our way out of this problem, and that is where we are going. We're not going to curtail. It's not going to that isn't going to be happening. So the fallback plan, which was always the plan in the first place, I believe, is to innovate our way out of this, and that is going to happen thanks to AI at a breakneck speed. So
absolutely, it's already happening. It's already
embrace
started.
it and drive it, people. Be involved in what kind of AI is a child right now, and the kind of adult it grows into is kind of up to you. So thanks so much, Rob. I greatly appreciate it. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving with the fam.
Thank you. You as well.
I will indeed, and then I've got
have a great Thanksgiving, everybody in the chat as well.
Yeah, and I have Nerd Halen tonight and tomorrow night here in Vegas at the Virgin Hotel and Casino, and then Tuesday we have a special Ultimate Jam night for Adam Mandel, who helps us put it together, has cancer, so we're raising money for him, and so people can come down to that. It's free on the first floor, but you could buy booth tickets for the upstairs and that kind of thing, and people can donate to his. There'll be a thing there, like a card there for people who want to go to his GoFundMe and the like and support. So really appreciate those who are coming down, and I'm gonna go not talk until I have sound check, and then I gotta sing tonight for 2 hours straight.
Good luck tonight.
Yeah. These are the longest sets. They're 3 40-minute sets in a row with a 10-minute break in between. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. So anyways, much love. See you guys later. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else, and we'll see you soon. Bye, Rob.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers. the credits roll and sometimes they don't. And I have no idea why. I'm trying to get them to go. I'm trying. I'm so trying.